Welcome to Beyond the Frontline podcast, where your hosts, U.S. Air Force veterans Donna Hoffmeyer and Jay Johnson, will help you transition from the front line to the home front. Listen every other Wednesday as they will bring great conversations, resources, tips, and feel-good stories that will resonate and relate. Now, here's your hosts, Donna Hoffmeyer and Jay Johnson.
Hey everyone, welcome to Beyond the Front Line. I'm your co-host Donna Hoffmeyer, and I am here with my brother from another mother, my co-partner, my co-host, my sometimes pain in the butt, keeps me accountable, but the one, the only Jay Johnson.
Hey everybody, it's good to be back. Donna, that was maybe the kindest intro you've given me in a while. That one, you only said a pain in the backside. You didn't lavish some of the other things that I sometimes get called.
I don't call you anything.
Well, not on the air. That's true. Face. Usually that happens before the recording starts. Yeah, to my face. I heard that.
That's a lie. All good. It is all good. You can even ask Brian.
Yeah.
It's always positive.
Okay, good.
So what have you been up to?
Look, things have been busy, taking on some new government work and traveling around a little bit, and then my seasonal kinds of things I dabble in that you know about. I mean, I've been all over the map with not a chance to catch a breath.
We haven't had a 2-hour lunch in...
It's been,
what,
6 months, yeah.
Like we'll always have like our 2-hour lunch, and we haven't had it.
We'll get it. Lunch is coming on me. I probably owe you because you bail me out of too many fires, so I probably owe you a long list of
bail you out. I was your Jiminy Cricket. No, not your Jiminy Cricket. What was I when you were doing your event the other day? It was
I think you were, I'll call you a little bit of a co-host. I mean,
no, I wasn't the co-host. I was like your secretary.
I'm not
keeping it all running.
I'm not going to call you that. Big event that I just took on for the government, 2-day workshop, all senior leaders who are transitioning from their military service, all branches of service, and you were in the room and helped tremendously. Just kind of.
We had a lot of fun.
Make sure that things went well. Yeah, it was good.
Yep. So all that's good. Our family's healthy. Everybody's healthy. My daughter she did her first theater production.
I saw that.
She's in drama club, which is very appropriate for an 11-year-old. I know why they call it drama club. It has nothing to do with theater.
Better to have her in drama club than to have her have drama.
She identified that. She told me, she goes, Mom, I am going to be doing like a lot in 6th grade. They kind of limit them just to get them immersed into junior high and all that, or middle school as they call it. But next year she could play sports and do all that. She goes, Mom, I decided I'm going to be doing a lot of clubs and sports because when I'm doing all that, then I don't have to deal with all that drama. And in my head, I said, or create it. And I said, You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. So she had her first production and she was amazing. She was what they call the ensemble. So she doesn't have a name, but it was her first go, and I thought it was perfect for her.
But they did that when she was young.
Yeah, they did amazing, and they actually do in competition. So this Saturday is the first competition, and then a couple weeks the next one. So
that's exciting.
We're all amongst theater right now, so it's been fun.
Well, I'm glad everybody's healthy,
yes.
And it's fun watching our kiddos grow their own wings, right? As they dabble out in other things. So I don't know, Don, I'm pretty excited about today and our guest. And, we're still doing this series on resiliency, and we've had some amazing people join us, and we're just going to add to the list with a bigger capital A, amazing, in my opinion.
Well, and what we've been aiming on are all these amazing veterans, right? Sure. They're like doing these like off the chart things.
Yeah.
But and you and I both know that the spouses are often the backbone. So when
100%.
These guys are out there and girls are out there getting it done, somebody is at home holding it together, right? Yeah. And then, so what happens when that person, that veteran, is no longer, they gave the ultimate sacrifice, and that spouse is now left behind as the ultimate in resiliency, right? Yeah. So we're going to hear the story, and I'm going to let you introduce her, because this really brings amazing to another level and a whole other perspective.
Yeah, but I agree with you when you talk about backbone. I like to say center of gravity, right? Mm-hmm. I think the spouse of a veteran is the center of gravity, really, for all things. It's where we remain grounded. So excited because met this lady, a dear friend of mine, when I was still on active duty, and we were stationed at Aviano Air Base in Italy. Just a picturesque place to ever have a chance to be stationed.
Been there many, many times.
Yeah, we attended church together, and just a lot of common friends. And she's spoken at a leadership event I do. She came out and spoke, and wasn't a dry eye in the room, and people just have new perspectives. So I'd like to just welcome my dear friend, Ginger Gilbert Ravella. Ginger, it's so good to have you join us.
Hey, Jay and Donna. It's good to be on your program today. Thank you so much.
Thanks
It's
for
so,
coming.
yeah, it's so fun. It's good to see you. We always tell our listeners, they don't know, but when we're recording these sessions in studio, we get to see our guests, but we're only, passing along the audio to them. But it's good to see you, Ginger. And I really appreciate more than anything. I know how busy you are. And I just appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, old friends, you got to make time for old friends always.
Oh, thank you for that. Well, Ginger, give me just a few minutes here, because I really just want to let people hear just a little bit of your bio to have a sense of who you are, and then we're really just gonna, turn to you and allow you to share some of your life journey and story. Ginger Gilbert Ravella is a military wife and widow. She's a mother of 5, stepmother of 2, writer and international speaker. At 36 years of age, she faced the sudden tragic loss of her college sweetheart husband in Operation Iraqi Freedom and the horrors that quickly followed. Her husband, Major Troy Gilbert, an Air Force F-16 pilot, gave his life while serving over 20 special operations soldiers, defining a true American war hero. Ginger has appeared in venues such as the O'Reilly Factor, Fox and Friends News, Time Magazine, CNN's The Lead with Jake Trapper, the Golf Channel, USA Today, Air Force Times, Gary Sinise documentary Lieutenant Dan Band for the Common Good, Stars and Stripes, NRA documentary with Lee Bryce, This Is My Cause, CMT News, NBC News Today, PGA Magazine, The Hour with Jamie Ivey, Pardon the Mess podcast, and she's done numerous radio interviews. Ginger is remarried to another widower and United States Air Force fighter pilot, another person I consider a friend, Colonel retired Jim Ravella, who lost his wife to breast cancer. And their profound inspirational memoir titled Hope Found is a collection of personal stories beautifully woven together with real-life struggles, vulnerable faith, and unshakable patriotism. And that's who I know Ginger to be and Jim to be. And Ginger, again, we are so thankful to have you on, and we're really looking forward to just you sharing some of your life journey. And I know our listeners are going to walk away from this with a appreciation, right, for who our veterans are, our men and women are, the backbone of every bit of this. So, Ginger, would you mind just kind of step in wherever you would like to step in and share some of your story?
Sure. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the most amazing people I've ever met in my entire life are military families. They're just overcomers to the next level. And I didn't know anything about the military when I was growing up. I grew up in a small town. My parents were in education. And so when I met Troy in college in Texas, and, he was the son of an Air Force enlisted family, and he wanted to be an officer. He wanted to be a fighter pilot. And I really just wanted to be his wife. I wanted to follow him wherever his journey led. And I was naive probably to realize that, how it would change me, the bittersweetness of so much of it. But it also really, the military life made me into a lot of who I am today. And I am so grateful for every family. I realize that I am not the only one to have lost someone in combat and in service to our nation. So I'm just grateful to have the platform to be able to represent Gold Star families to our nation and to help them to raise awareness. I don't think the average American really understands, what a military family goes through, even before maybe loss of life or loss of limb, just the sacrifices that are made on a day-to-day basis. Kids that don't spend their birthdays with their parents or holidays. There's just it comes at a great cost to families for those that serve and those that stand alongside them. So I have definitely, I grew up not really realizing what was involved. I married Troy. We lived overseas right out of the gate. And I just was so humbled when I saw what he was willing to do, the hours that he worked, the time away from our family. We ended up having 5 children together, and but he loved serving our country so much, and loved flying the F-16, and just the community, the brotherhood, the missions. And so I just, it was in that way, it was, how could I not support what he did? And I, gave up pretty much my career and being around family, with small children, but I loved him, and will till the day I died. But
Amazing human being, Ginger, right? I mean, my memories of Troy, and, I didn't get to spend nearly as much time with him and you all there. We were all so busy, but he always made you feel like you were the most important person in the room. Like, he would give you his full attention and time, and he had this, energy and exuberance about him, is what I would say.
Yeah, I think that's a common statement so many people say about him. And, when I met him, he was 17. He was a freshman in college, a young freshman in college. And even at that stage where he wasn't even fully developed, I don't think, I still saw in him this loyalty and this love for others that was the common thread. From the day I met him when he was 17 in the college school cafeteria up until the day that he gave his life for our country. It was this thing about him that he loved others in the biggest way, whether he's standing talking to you at church, Jay, or ultimately flying surveillance, protecting troops on the ground. So yeah, thank you for acknowledging that. That is, I hope that someone will say that about me someday. I hope.
Yeah, no, that's true, Ginger. I think about that all the time. What will we be remembered for? And he definitely is a memory we will not forget, right? His story deserves to be told, and others can learn from it.
Yeah, it does. It does. So his story was my story too, and then ultimately a God story is what I always say. When we were stationed at Luke Air Force Base in 2006, and he left for Iraq in September. We had 5 children who were all under the age of 8 when he deployed. Our oldest son was 8, our second son was 6, our daughter had just turned 3, and then we had identical twin baby girls that were 6 months old. Oh, and wow. So, to say our life was busy was an understatement. He wasn't supposed to deploy that assignment. He was teaching guys how to fly the F-16 at Luke Air Force Base. He was also an executive aide for the wing commander, General Robin Rand. And he was working for President Bush on Air Force One as an advance agent. So that took him on some trips with the president, but he was, he was busy, he was gone, but the silver lining of the whole assignment was that no matter how busy he was, he wasn't going to deploy to Iraq. And so when General Rand left being the wing commander at Luke Air Force Base, went to Balad base in Iraq to be the wing commander, is when he took Troy with him to teach guys how to fly in combat as his top pilot at Luke. Yeah. And, I remember just thinking, well, this wasn't how it was supposed to be. We had orders. We were already going to Kansas, and my mind, military wife, we're like, I'm getting it done. I'm looking at housing, and we're going to Leavenworth, and he's going to school, next. And so, it was surprising, but I knew, he said, Ginger, I've trained my whole life for this. This is my chance to really serve in an even more impactful way. And so I thought, okay, this isn't my plan, but we've got 4.5 months. We'll get it done. We'll get through the holidays, and he'll be back, and then we can get on with life. And so I never lived in fear. I really didn't. I knew he was capable and competent, and I just think, ultimately in the back of my mind, I always thought maybe God's never going to let this happen to him, because we're serving in the church, we're serving our community. He's a light, and lights don't get snuffed out early is sort of, I think, what we all think. And so when I got that knock at the front door, just right after Thanksgiving, 3 months after Troy left, and they told me that his jet had gone down in a combat mission that morning, I think, I remember just saying, we have 5 kids. This can't be happening. This isn't our story. This is someone else's story. This is not our story. And they told me that they didn't know, exactly the details. And so in my mind, I thought, okay, Troy was this ace fighter pilot. I'm sure he's fine. He got out of this. I knew, I wasn't surprised that he was out defending other warriors on the ground that day. And but I just knew he was going to be okay. And so it was a huge shock to find out 8 hours later that his plane had gone down, and that the Iraqis that he was tailing, he was gunning for there were 15 insurgent trucks going after this downed special ops Black Hawk. Had a crash landing, and they were being overrun by insurgents. And Troy answered the call on the radio and came in and was taking out the trucks. And on his last pass, his tail clipped the ground and he crashed. And those insurgents, probably the end of that stream of trucks that were going after our special operators, the last one took off and went to the crash site and unharnessed Troy from his jet seat and took him as a war trophy. Yeah.
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 I mean, it's not the first time, Ginger, that I've been in the room with you, even as you've recanted this story, and it still has an emotional impact on me. So, and more reason why we appreciate your willingness to come on. And here's where I think I'd like for us to shift to the resiliency piece of this.
Mm-hmm.
So you set the stage. You've now acknowledged that, none of this was expected. When are things like this, of course, but I mean, he wasn't supposed to deploy when I say that. And here you are with 5 kids, 2 of them younger than the age of 1. What sustained you, Ginger? I mean, I know part of that anyway. Talk about what you leaned on, what you did to continue to function and take care of the family.
Well, I was 36 years old at the time, and I thought that I was this, super strong, really tough, military wife. I had done so much. I felt like I'd grown so much over that 13 years that we'd been married. But I really, when you have your whole world ripped out from underneath you, it doesn't matter how strong you think you are, or how big your faith is, or whatever your support system. I mean, you don't really know till it happens to you, how you're going to respond. And I think my initial response was just that military wife. We're going to get things done. We're going to have the funeral. And we knew that Troy had been killed because of DNA, skull fragments found at the crash site. There's no way he could have survived. So I was really just so thankful, praising God that he was not a POW. He wasn't alive, even though they had his body. But we were, our private family pain became front page CNN news. And so I was kind of grappling with just running out of steam, and running out of my own, what I had, the reserve I had. And I really went through a lot of dark days, just struggling with sleep and depression and anxiety. And I think, how could I not, right. But I think there was a point where another widow came into my life. I didn't know anyone at that point who had lost their spouse in service to our nation. And she really spoke some truth, some hard truth to me about just like keeping on walking, not quitting, waiting for the feelings to feel better, waiting for the days to be lighter, but just to find a purpose and a mission. And even if that was, whether big or small, it was to take care of Troy and I's children, to carry on his legacy, And I started speaking for military charities at that point. Didn't really plan on that being the path that I would go down, but I realized, wow, there's like, I get to represent these families, and they deserve all the help in the world that we can possibly give them. There's only 1%, of America that serves the other 99%.
How long after, like you said, you started speaking, but from the time you find out to getting to the point of speaking, what was that time frame and how did you kind of get there? Because it's funny that when I was listening to you, I was kind of smiling because I'm a nurse by trade and I'm a great crisis worker. If it's all going to hell in a handbasket, I'd be standing in the middle of it, directing traffic and doing all of that. And people will look at me like, how in the heck is she functioning? Because I just shut off and I go into automatic mode. And then 8 months later, when everybody's processed, I'm over there falling apart. And they're just like, what's wrong with her? Oh, yeah, don't worry. So I'm just curious, like, what was going on during that time then to the point where you got to speaking?
Well, I'm a Christian. I have walked with the Lord my whole life. We had an amazing church. We had a great support system through the military community, the other pilots that were in Troy's squadron. I mean, I had a great system, and I will always be thankful to those people that came in and just showed up every day with a casserole or a plunger, or taught my kids how to ride a bike, or just showed up for me. And it wasn't always no one had the right words, but people just loved me tangibly in ways I needed it. And so I'm so thankful to them. Without the Lord, without faith, that I have that there is a bigger, this life isn't all that there is. And I know that the prayers of so many people lifted me up on days I couldn't get out of bed. But I think that just finally, making the decision, I got some medical help. I mean, at first I was very opposed to taking any kind of antidepressant or anything, but I was sort of wasting away. I mean, I didn't have the strength or energy or sleep behind me to take care of my kids. And so I had a great medical doctor who sort of helped me, balance that whole like faith and prayer, but medicine and all of those things. And so it was a bunch of things. I can't say there's just one thing. But the Lord really, he showed me so many things in that time. And, I tell people now as I go out and we have retreats for widows, and I'm really sort of going back to that hard place to sit with people who are in that hard place, is that you have to believe things that you don't feel. You have to hang on to hope, because I think that's the one thing that we all can't live without. We can live without a lot of stuff, but we can't live without hope. And I finally was like, I can't let go, that I have the hope, my kids have the hope that we will have brighter days ahead, that this isn't going to be the end of us. And for a long time, there were months that I prayed that it would be the end of us, but it was very, very, very fulfilling to go back and be able to share about Troy's story, because the thought of his name not being spoken anymore broke my heart, because he was this amazing man. He was a hero among heroes, and even in our day-to-day life. Yeah.
Yeah, when you said that last part, Ginger, two quick things. Number one, I was out in Arizona last summer. I think I maybe even sent you a note at Luke Air Force Base, and had to pull off to the side of the road. I'm going to get emotional because well, there's a bridge there. That's the Troy Gilbert Memorial Bridge that crosses over the road that passes in between the base. And it warmed my heart to know they honored him and his memory, and you and the family in that way. And at AETC, General Robin Rand was our commanding general, and probably the very first commander's call he did. I'm sitting in the theater and going to hear from the new boss, and he shares Troy's story. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting out there and I'm thinking, you've got to be kidding me, right? I am so glad that there are people out there speaking his name. So I wanted to share that with you as you brought that in.
I think another thing too is when you about speaking their name and talking about them and keeping that memory alive. A lot of people that have not either had any experience with with losing somebody close in any capacity, they're hesitant, like, I don't want to offend her or whatever. And I lost somebody a couple of years ago, and it struck hard. And in our house, we'll bring up like, oh, when he did this or whatever it was. And it's just like, it does keep that person there. So when you said that, I'm like, yeah, I get what you mean. Like, you don't want that to be gone and forgotten, and to just speak to them as they're still a presence, because they are, is comforting.
It is. Yeah. And when I remarried, as you mentioned, Jay, Jim Ravella, he's a colonel, flew the F-15E, and he lost his wife of 24 years to cancer, and they had 2 boys, and so we blended our families, sort of a modern day Brady Bunch, So
where did you guys meet? How did you guys meet?
Well, that's in the book. It's a very sweet story.
Oh, okay.
But it's just through an Air Force friend, but it was really while his wife was still alive. We had this beautiful email relationship, never in a million years, lived all the way across the country, never thought I would ever get to meet this beautiful couple, Jim and Andrea Ravella, but we got connected, and just through our common bond of faith in the Lord, and walking through suffering faithfully, they really ministered to me and helped me. And I just, like I said, it was just nothing I ever dreamt of that I would ever meet them, much less end up marrying Jim. And so we both talked about that thing, what is that thing that connects people who have suffered tragedy and trials. And the longer we all live, we're all going to
Right.
but it's just that, like, we're going to sit with it, hold the loss, and we still feel like Troy and Andrea live in this home with us. Sometimes it's crowded, but but they do, because Jim wouldn't be who he is, wouldn't have been the man I would have married without Andrea's life. And so
you are really a beautiful couple, beautiful blended family. And just to remind everybody, the book is called Hope Found. You had just had it published when you came out and spoke at that conference with me. Yeah, it's fantastic. I have a copy, so I'll put it in Donna's hands. Should she?
I'll go buy it. No, I'm a fellow author. I'll go buy the book. I know how this goes.
Well, it's we wrote it not just for ourselves and our children and their children and their children, but really it's written for anyone who's just walking through hard things in life and going, wait, where's God in this? And this doesn't make sense. And how can I walk through something so painful and and be maybe better and not bitter? Because there is a choice to be made. All of us, whatever the kind of trauma or tragedy we all endure, it's like, well, there's a fork in the road,
Ginger, there's this other piece that I'll see if you're willing to share. So, you stood tall. I appreciate your authenticity. You've shared with our listeners. You didn't say everything was easy. In fact, you quite frankly shared the really vulnerable part about what you really struggled with and what you had to overcome. And none of it was easy, but you clung tightly to hope, was what I heard, and continue to lean into our Lord and Savior. And there's another part, though. This part is the fighter in you. This part is the part where you are not going to allow our senior military leaders to forget Troy, and that they had an obligation to bring him home. You mind sharing some of what you went through to ensure that day came?
Yeah, when President Obama pulled all of our troops out of Iraq, maybe what was that, 10 or 11, and Troy's body's still missing. I know they've been searching, but it was sort of like, wait, what's going to happen now? All of our troops are gone, and Troy's still over there. And in the Air Force, it was some tough days. Troy's case was an anomaly. That here we have this DNA. He's considered killed in action. It's that part of it, kind of case closed, but then here is his entire body is still over there. The Department of Missing Persons, that's not, it wasn't like in Vietnam, where we didn't have the DNA. He did fall in this very, very small crack. And I wanted the Air Force, and Troy's family wanted the Air Force to do the right thing and keep the case open, and whatever could be done. And so it was some back and forth, with them trying to recognize, even though, yes, his body is, technically accounted for with DNA, it really isn't. So I learned later, as time went on, our special operations community, our intelligence community, still just hard at it. Always listening, always keeping the fires burning for searching for him. And I'm really grateful to the special operations community for never, ever quitting. And ultimately, they would be the ones who would recover him in 2016. It was the same units, different guys, older guys, younger guys. They 10 years later, but it would be that same unit that would pull him out and bring him home eventually.
Yeah, when you say the same unit, Ginger, I just want to make sure for the listeners. So the same unit that Troy was defending on the ground from the insurgents.
Right.
They really never lost sight of their appreciation for him, and he became one of theirs.
Yes, the Night Stalkers, really.
Yeah.
So ultimately, they're loading his body on after an epic, midnight, very dangerous recovery mission. His body had been traded by Iraqi tribal leaders for 10 years as a war trophy. And they risked their lives to go in and get him and bring him back to this country. And I'll be just eternally grateful to that specific community for how they never left him behind on the field of battle, truly.
And Troy's remains are interned at Arlington, isn't that correct?
They are there at Arlington, and I love it when anyone can swing by there in Section 60, grave 8520, and send me a photo. And yeah, he's awesome. He's laid to rest among many American heroes.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to make it by there, Ginger. I was part of an honor flight for, I don't know, maybe a year and a half, where we were taking some of our nation's aging veterans to go see the memorials that stand in their honor, right? The Vietnam Wall, the Korean Memorial, World War II Memorial, of course. But the schedule was always so stringent, I wasn't able to break away from the schedule we had with our veterans to go see Troy. But I'm scheduled to be in Virginia to speak in March, and I'm telling you, I'm going. So
yeah, thank you, appreciate it.
I'll be at Langley, but I'll hop in a car and take a ride.
That's a beautiful base. Yeah.
It's gorgeous. So Ginger, how about this? Thank you again for just sharing. And what advice maybe do you have for someone who's facing something? Right, we all face something. In generally many things over the course of our life. Somebody's going through some hard times. What would you offer to them?
I would say to be honest about your struggles. I think too many people hide behind, whether it's social media or just not being honest about where they're at, and you can't get the help you need without truly raising your hand and saying, I'm struggling. And I need someone to speak some life and truth into me. I need someone really just to show up, because like I said, it's not the words there's no magic words to help people especially people who have lost someone, but you can sure be there and sit with them and hold their hand and mow their yard and babysit their kids. And I look at the tangible ways people really just showed up for me, and that reminded me that God had not forgotten us. And so I would say dig deep into your faith, your beliefs, because I think we can lose sight in this life of this is it and this is all there is to live for, but there's so much more, and we have the hope of eternity. I believe that. And I think Troy's life inspired me. He was not a quitter, ever. He was about other people always. And I want to honor his name, his legacy, his memory. I would know his children do as well. And we aren't going to be quitters. We're going to continue. Troy went back time and time again, flew those passes, the low dangerous fast passes over that desert floor that day to save the men that he never knew. And if there's maybe something I say or do or the book that maybe would help someone else just to get up and keep walking, then I feel like then I've honored him and the Lord. Yeah.
Did you ever utilize TAP, the Tragedy Assistant Program?
You know, TAPS has so many wonderful programs. I did not, but I have tons of friends that have. I kind of jumped into more the military nonprofit space and the ministry space, and found help there. I went to counseling. I would definitely recommend people going to find a really good counselor. And but I definitely know TAPS has been a great help to people. And you know, now we have a widows ministry, and so I feel like I am still in that community of people who have lost, and I love that maybe, you know, there's a way they look at me and think there's a lighthouse, you know, I'm gonna keep swimming. kind of the Dory, you know, Nemo thing, like
right.
keep swimming.
Well, and just for our audience, so for our military, don't confuse TAPS with an S with TAP, the transition assistance.
Yeah.
TAPS is tragedy. I don't remember the whole acronym.
Tragedy assistance for dependents, or no, tragedy assistance program for survivors.
Survivors, right.
Right.
Great program. I know somebody that utilized it quite a bit. They did outings, and it's a community, right? It's a whole community of support, like you were talking about. You built yours, and not everybody may be in the same situation. But I will give a huge shout out to military families, because let me tell you, when it's all going downhill, they show up. And even when it's a good thing, when I had my son, my husband's, I'm a dependent and I'm also military, retiree. And when we had our son, every single day for a week, we had food coming in the house. I mean, I had like freezer full because we weren't eating as much as what was coming in. I was like, my gosh, so good, events, bad events, they show up. And like you said, mowing a lawn, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but when your mind is so everywhere and you look outside and you see one more thing that's just chaotic, it could just tip you over the edge, right?
Yeah.
Like, God, now there's that and I don't have the energy to do it. So the smallest acts are sometimes the biggest impacts, so nothing's too small or too big to do.
So true. And people I think everybody wants to help in the beginning, but it's the people who are
Sticking
after
out.
months and years, still remembering. When I get notes on November 27th, still after, this year, it'll be, it's been 16 years and I still hear from people on November 27th. And that is just like, it just makes you feel so loved and never forgotten. And so I always encourage people, like, just holidays are hard, anniversaries are hard, and so our retreats that we have for widows and conferences that we put on for widows, we really try to honor that loved one and tell them that's the main thing people want, is they don't want to be alone in the hard times. And so I just think if we can't love God and love others, if that can't be, that's my goal, in life, is like, I just hope that someday, that at the end of my life, they'll say, okay, she loved God, she loved people, and whatever else she did doesn't really matter.
Amen to that. Yeah. Amen. Hey, Ginger, I won't bring her name in. Off the podcast I'll share, but you and I have a friend in common, and she was one of my students when I was at Auburn University. So we're going to, at some point in the future, we'll have her on too, but I'll share that with you. But it is a community, and y'all do a fantastic job. And in my outside looking in opinion of leaning on each other, being there for each other, I just wanted to let everybody know again, all of Ginger's information we're going to upload in the write-up to the podcast. You'll be able to find her websites, but here's a couple of the websites for the book. The website is theanchorofhope.com. I really encourage you to go out there and pursue that for you, for there's so much goodness inside of, tragic events that you and Jim have experienced in life, but there's so much goodness in it for help and hope. And then the other one, you were just talking about these widow retreats, neveralonewidows.com/team is a good way for people to get out there. And maybe if you'd be willing to share, even Ginger, I know you are an ambassador for the Gary Sinise Foundation. What does that look like? What are you out there doing?
Well, Gary's just a dear friend of mine, and Jim works for Gary now. The foundation just moved from LA here to Franklin, Tennessee. So we're very happy about that. And they
shorten that commute up.
Yes, yeah, it did shorten the commute up. Jim can come home for lunch now. Gary just is such a passion for veterans, first responders, and their families, and so I'm honored to represent Gary when he can't be places, and just try to share about great programs like Snowball Express, where fallen families go to Disney every year during the holidays, and Gary helps fund our portion of our Never Alone retreats. We have one retreat a year that is solely for military and first responder families, wives, and they that happens in Nashville in the fall, and then we put on some other retreats and a conference in Atlanta throughout the year. So if anyone's listening who is a widow and lost your husband, our conference is in Atlanta mid-February. It's open to all widows. If you're 20 or 80 or had children, never had children, we would welcome you to come be a part and just find community. And then the retreats are for little smaller groups of women who have lost their spouse and still have children in the home and are kind of in the weeds, and we're there to be like, hey sister, we're gonna be with you in the weeds.
Is it just for if you lost a spouse, like if a mom lost a child, or does that count too, or is that
just spouses? We just serve
spouses.
widows.
Okay.
Yes. 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 And then I still enjoy speaking for other military charities and just trying to raise awareness and raise funds. I believe these kids, my kids have been tremendously helped by other foundations. And now my children they're not children anymore. They're 25, 22, 19, and those twins are about to be 17 years old. And they all know the value of someone just coming alongside them. And they're all giving back in their own ways, and it's exciting. Actually, my son Grayson is in San Antonio. He's
is that true?
Yes,
what's he doing?
He is a contractor, a fitness contractor with the military. He's at Randolph, and he's helping fighter pilots. Yeah, fighter pilots and special operators. All of the students, keeping them fit for their flying and all of their adventures. So you have to go check in.
I'm gonna have to go look him up. Of course, he doesn't know me, but
no, that's okay. My kids know they've got an extended military family. They love it.
That's so good. And listen, I'm just going to say to all the listeners out there, look, I'm in the speaker circuit, not to the degree that Ginger is. She's phenomenal. You definitely want to bring her into your event. I encourage you to reach out to her, have that conversation, and you will not be disappointed. But I admire and respect you so much, Ginger, and I just beyond words appreciate your willingness to continue to serve the veteran community. It is who you are. You said earlier, you just hope that anything you do honors his memory, and I'm telling you, you always have. You are. Your amazing kids and family are, and I'm so thankful to have you in my life personally, even though we don't get to see each other or sit around a cup of coffee and commiserate. I just want you to know you're never far from my thoughts personally.
Thank you, Jay. I think the military family is just that. It's a family, and I'm so grateful to have met you, Donna. Appreciate y'all having me on your program today.
Really. Oh, it is our honor. It was I was very excited to have you come on. I really wanted to hear the story, and honestly, you popped on in a bright smile, and I was like, wow, that says a lot, because there are people that are not, they are not, and you see it, right, Ginger? You see it, and they're not, and we don't have the magic key to that. What changes it, resiliency is such an enigma in a way. I mean, we have lots of things we can do to be resilient. We can give lots of tips. We can hold hands. We can sit with them. But at the end of the day, it's the mud and rope is what I call it. And we can throw the ropes, but they have to pull themselves out of the mud. And for some, it's a lot of mud. So we honor that, and we hope that we can just get enough ropes to all these people to get themselves out of the mud.
I think you're doing it by having podcasts like this, and just reaching out to people through technology. It's a beautiful thing. I didn't have that back in 2006, and so I think we're all supposed to use the time, the resources, the talents we have for good, and y'all are doing it. So thank you.
Appreciate you.
That.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, Ginger, as we start to wrap this up? Anything that's on your heart that maybe didn't come out that you'd just like to convey to the listeners?
I think as it's the beginning of a year, new year, you and I have been talking about doing this for a while. And so I think it's a great time for us all to just sort of take account of gratitude in our life for the things that we have, and the things that we don't, or the people that we long for, to find ways that we can still honor their memory. And really, I think there's so much healing in helping other people and getting out of our own bubble. And I had a friend that said her daddy used to tell her, "Stop staring at your navel," and I think about that a lot, because I think I realized, grief made me into a much more compassionate person. I think I see hurting people more than I ever did before I was one of them. And so I would encourage anybody who's struggling, maybe you feel like, I don't have it in me, I don't have it in me to help someone else because I'm hurting so bad. But I think the surprising thing is when we turn our eyes and look around and maybe reach out to someone else, there is just a great amount of healing and perspective that can come from that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Donna, any last thoughts?
When you said, Dad said, "Stop looking at her navel." That's cute. I always tell my kids, when you're feeling down and out, do something nice for someone else, because there is always somebody around that is in a worse situation than you. And you can show gratitude toward that and give back. It's not going to necessarily take away your pain, but it might give you a new perspective, and it might help you work through it.
So true. Yeah, that is very true. But I appreciate y'all saying Troy's name today. He would have been, he'd be 50 now. It's hard to imagine him being a 50-year-old man, but I know that he would have never in a million years imagined that his story would have been in Time magazine or anything. But I think the one thing he would want people to remember is just to live for others. So thank you for letting me share his story today.
Yeah, very much appreciated. And I'll just wrap us up by, using a quote. Those of you listening in, I pull these out all the time.
Quote master.
I'm a repository of these things. I don't know who to attribute this one to. You may know as I say it, but to what you were saying, Donna, it's you have not lived until you've done something for someone who will never be able to repay you. So that's what's kind of weighed on my spirit. So, Ginger, again, thank you for the time, to your amazing family. Can't wait to see you all at some point in the future. My best to everyone. And on behalf of my co-host, Donna Hoffmeyer, our special guest, Gilbert Ravella, and our parent network, Coming Home Well, this is another episode of Beyond the Frontline, and we look forward to hearing from you. Reach out, leave us a note, let us know something that touched you today from this episode. Certainly we appreciate a like, follow, a share, but we will continue to serve you as you all continue to serve others. Thanks for listening.
Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Frontline, a podcast of Coming Home Well. Join us every other Wednesday. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. Follow us on Instagram at ComingHomeWell_BTS or on Twitter at ComingHomeWell. Thanks again. And until all are home and all are well.